Jen Ross, you're the music supervisor on Fox's Empire, which is now in its 3rd season. How is the show, now that you guys are in the 3rd year, which is right around the time things start to really gel, how has the show developed since the beginning?
You know, it's been quite a journey. We started with this concept that you never really knew how it was going to play. And by the 3rd season, we've now developed these narratives and these storylines, and we've introduced so many different musical characters. And I think that somewhere between 1 and 3, we really have honed in on what that balance is. You'll see towards the end of season 3, there's kind of this wonderful balance that takes us back a little bit more to season 1. I think season 2, we added a lot more elements and a lot more characters and musical storylines. And in 3, you'll see kind of towards the end, we start to take it down a bit and really get back to the family and the main characters.
Now, the thing about this show, and that makes your job as a music supervisor, I'm sure, both exciting and challenging, is that it is about the music industry. And there's a ton of original songs in it. So talk a little bit about your role in regards to that.
It's, you know, music in TV is always somewhat challenging on different levels. That being said, this is a beast into itself. We are literally, you know, when they say it takes a village, it is a village to pull off a show like this. So there's a very large creative team, and we work on this nonstop around the clock. For every episode, there are a minimum of 2, if not 3, sometimes 4, calls, meetings, what have you, that are specifically about the music and how we're going to develop it for each episode, and what it takes from just narrative to the creation, to the execution of the pre-record, to having it prepared for playback. And then we have the whole post side. So it is just a ongoing, incredible, delicate balance of a lot of balls in the air and being able to juggle them all at the same time.
Right. So talk a little bit about, I guess, the development episode by episode of the original material that you're going to use. Where do you start from?
It really starts, it starts as early as outline form. And in a lot of shows, you know, you talk about narrative in, you know, the script development. It really starts much like that in the outline side of the narrative. Before we even get to full scripts, it's really a core of where are we going with the characters in each episode, and where do those songs appear in the episode? What should they feel like? How developed are those songs in the episode? We have certain songs that you hear in different stages, so we have to be very conscious. A lot of the times what happens is we have to figure out what the end product is so we can deconstruct it from there and figure out what would it be as it grew in the beginning of the episode, so we know what we're going to hear in the end. And it's being able, again, in that creative team, to be able to all sit around and look at it and turn it upside down and break it apart and say, okay, so what do we have to do in order to get here? Let's take ourselves back. Is it this episode? Do we have to maybe drop something even the episode before this that starts laying that out, and so on and so forth?
And in terms of the narrative of the songs, could you point to a couple of examples from this past season of the ways in which you tell the stories of the episodes through the songs?
You know, I think actually a great example would be even our premiere episode in season 3. You know, we leave off in season 2, Jamal gets shot by another character, Frida. And there is, in season 3, the opener, we have a song that develops throughout the episode, and it starts as Free Freedom, Free Frida, and it eventually becomes Need Freedom. It's Free Frida when Jamal's singing it, and he is developed and sung the song about gun violence, and it's triggered by what happened with Frida, who he had his own relationship with. And he then has PTSD, and in this big performance, he can't perform it. So then what do you do? So then we have to think about what happens if somebody else steps forward, and would they be able to sing to something as specific as Frida? No, they wouldn't. So then the lyric narrative changes to something that's much more broader, Need Freedom, that it's still within speaking to gun violence and making the social statement today, but not as specific to that one character. So I think that would be a kind of interesting example of how you got to open it up and look at it from different perspectives.
And the songs really do exist on their own outside of the show. I mean, you know, people listen to the soundtracks independently. Um, I guess, how does that make you feel, knowing that you've created a couple of hit songs that exist independently of the show that you're doing? I mean, when people ask you, create a hit song, then,
It's again, there's so many blessings about the show. It's a rarity to be able to be a part of something like this, and being a music supervisor, again, it's really challenging, but it's a dream come true to be able to look at these things and go, wow, I can't even believe I'm a part of that. But it's crazy. I mean, it's pretty insane when there's certain songs that, you know, I've had people tell me that, you know, that this is their favorite song, it's their favorite, their son's favorite song. He's downloaded it, he's this, he's that. It's you know, even this thing that's interesting is even the broad spectrum of occasionally something will get large enough that even my mother will call me and tell me she's heard of the song. And that's crazy. But great, all at the same time.
Oh, wonderful. So in constructing the episodes, you guys have a composer as well who does underscore. How do you guys work together in order to decide on the right musical moments for the show?
So we all get together when we spot the episodes together. Phil Eisler is our composer, who is absolutely wonderful and a godsend on this project. And he totally brings something so different to the table than what we're doing within our original songs. And then also there's a lot of licensed music, a lot of hip hop, and he brings something that is very dramatic yet also traditional, and almost this Godfather-esque element that he brings to the table. And we really just sit and we spot each episode and we go scene by scene and really figure out what are the moments that serve more with something that takes us emotionally and tonally so far away from what we're doing with what is contemporary pop or urban music, and figure out what is that balance. When is it a better time for score to really be telling the story? And we just, you know, again, that village of ours, we get together and then, you know, figure out when are the right moments for score versus song.
And then working with the creators, Lee Daniels and Danny Strong, showrunners, directors, what do they give you that helps you make those decisions?
Listen, it's their playground. So it is by all means, this is 100%, this is their vision and their playground. It's about, they have this vision and we come in and bring our toolkits and figure out everything we can do to help achieve what it is that it should feel like, what it should taste like, what it should smell like. And it's amazing. I mean, there are some pretty incredible talents involved with this project. And they see things in colors and paint with these strokes that are pretty amazing. And we really feel blessed to have done some pretty crazy things on the show. We've definitely pushed the limit in many different ways, especially musically.
Now, you've also been working on Star, which is also from Lee Daniels and also about the music industry. What are some of the differences between those two shows?
There's a tonality between the two. Both of them, yes, are set so much so in a contemporary day. But Star themselves as a girl group, they are more R&B. Their background comes from something that's a little bit more 90s. And the tonality of the show as a whole, it's set in Atlanta, and it feels very much so like it's a show set in Atlanta. Mm-hmm. Whereas Empire, especially when it comes to contemporary music, is a little bit more four quadrant and feel, you know, it's Empire's as a record label. So it really kind of, there's everything can be thrown into that kettle, whereas Star's very specific of a storyline and a tonality, and we really try to stay within what it feels like for these girls in their struggle of trying to find success and kind of get away from their dark past in Atlanta. We really keep it within that quadrant.
Well, then talk a little bit about some of the musical decisions that you made in regards to that show.
You know, that show, it's also different. You know, first of all, there's we have the original songs and the licensed music. The licensed music is a lot more specific again. We've got Queen Latifah, who's the matriarch in the show. There's a hair salon, and we make sure that everything in that, you know, again, it's about being very authentic to the environment. So all of the musical choices in that, and, you know, Lee very specifically, again, he's got a very, very specific vision, and in that, musically, his taste is very authentic to that environment. So you'll hear a lot of R&B and soul in the hair shop versus when you know, again, going, you know, against an Empire, something that you would hear in those kinds of shops would be very contemporary radio, and this is not what you're hearing in Star. It's a little bit more OG and very authentic.
Well, what were some highlights from this? You just finished the first season. The second season is going to premiere this year. So what were some of the highlights of this first season of Star when you guys are still like finding your way?
You know, it was very interesting this season on Star. The journey from pilot to series was pretty incredible. That pilot was a very special thing to get to work on after coming out of a couple seasons of Empire. There's elements of Star that were even a little bit more musically raw, but yet still very inspiring and still work within a pop market. The big difference, especially what was interesting in the originals in Star, is there are sampled elements and interpolated elements in some of the songs, which is not something that we do in Empire. It's something very specific to Star that we do, because these girls are very inspired on what they have come up on, and incorporating these other songs, for instance, like an Aretha Franklin song, we incorporated into one of their original songs in which they perform. And being able to do things like that just added a different level to the creativity of it.
You've worked on a wide variety of shows and films. Just a couple more of your TV credits from recent years: Power, Quantico, Grace and Frankie, Smash. Can you talk about going from show to show, film to film, and finding the right musical voice for it?
It's always different. Every project is always different. It's like personalities. People are different. So every project has its own different little quirks and its different little needs, and it breathes and exists differently. And in that, again, it's so contingent on who and what those creatives are, and what it is they see. You know, we get the pleasure of coming in and playing in their playground. And once you can have that dialogue and really understand what it is that you're trying to achieve musically, and what that environment is, you know, you really just start kind of collecting things, going like this, you know, this may not, and you think very character-wise who and what they are. For me, what's great, you know, all these different projects, it's almost like traveling. It's almost like a journey, because they're all so different. So, you know, for instance, you know, you mentioned both Power and Quantico, two totally different shows. It's really fun to be able to work on something like Power that is richly dark and almost cerebral at times in what those tonal choices are, to go to something like Quantico that's very driving and very action oriented, and it's really fun to be able to kind of journey amongst these different projects and be able to play in these different worlds.
Well, Jen, thank you so much, and congratulations on your work this year. It was a pleasure talking with you.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Have a